It is time for another Saint Squad. I'm your host, Dylan Sanders from this show and Saints Wire and Tulane Green Wave on SI. And I think that the Saints should probably cut ties with the guy that doesn't want to be there.
I'm Ross Jackson, host of the Locked On Saints podcast, and I think that it's time to turn the page and start anew for the New Orleans Saints, and that means Derek Carr no longer in the building.
John Hendricks, publisher for Athlon Sports, covering your New Orleans Saints, and we're going to need a bigger boat for today.
This is former Saints wide receiver Lance Moore, and honestly, what are we doing here?
It's the Saints Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything New Orleans Saints, every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from down in the Big Easy, the way only Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Saints Squad show, starting now.
Hello, Who Dat Nation. Welcome back to another Saints Squad, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen every Monday and Thursday. We have a unique group of experts here ready to bring you a fun and informative show on everything New Orleans Saints. There's plenty to talk about today, but we're going to be talking about what's the next plan of action for the New Orleans Saints? What do they do from here? Then we're each going to stand on the table for one quarterback to start the first game of the season. How would not having Derek Carr change the outlook for the 2025 Saints? And then what we're going to start with, is it time to just cut ties with Derek Carr? This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Guys, I think most of us will agree, but it's time to make a change.
Yeah.
Should the Saints cut ties with Derek Carr?
Should we all say it in unison? 1, 2,
Who
3.
says no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely time to move on. Anytime that somebody has this, and honestly, like I said this before, any of the shoulder injury / is it a shoulder injury / trying to force his way out of New Orleans reports came about. I think John and I talked about it on our other show, Second and Saints, where we talked about how, this is just the time you've got a new head coach, start anew. This is your opportunity to turn a leaf, start the new era, all of this other stuff. And now this is it's only gotten worse, guys.
Yeah, I just don't know how you come back from all of this. You know what I'm saying? Right. Even if they, that's the point of where it just keeps getting worse as we move along here. And look, if you don't want to be here, then don't be here, right? That's my biggest thing is you got all these guys, veterans, all these guys putting in works, and I get OTAs are voluntary, but I saw all those vets there. I saw what Scott Shanley put out as well. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to be here, then don't be here. It's simple as that.
Yeah. I just don't. I'm so confused.
Well, your question to start off was, what are we doing here, right?
What are we doing? If
mess.
I'm the general manager and my quarterback does not want to be on the team anymore, why would I not facilitate his wishes and get him out of there? Yeah. Now, none of us know for sure, right? This is all speculation.
Right.
The things that have come out. Is he hurt? Is he faking in an injury so that he doesn't have to play because he doesn't want to be there? We don't know if these things are actually true. But if any of them are true and the quarterback does not want to be there, why would they waste time and money to have this guy be on the roster, taking up roster space? And I understand there would have been dead money left behind, regardless of what the situation was and how you got rid of him. But this is one of the things that kind of annoys me about modern day sports, is all the extra stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if he didn't want to be there, him and his representation should have gone to the Saints as soon as the season was over and started having conversations about what that might look like and what best way for both sides to make something like that happen. But I just don't understand why you wait and wait and wait into the offseason. You guarantee some of his money. You bring him back allegedly. Then all of a sudden, the shoulder injury. Then the Carr review on YouTube. I mean, it's just
The
like
Carr
to
review,
me, it's
man.
just such a weird way of operating on both sides. It's not just the Derek Carr thing. Like people need to put a little bit of the onus on the organization as well, because they aren't innocent in this matter, regardless of what people are saying. You can't just put all the blame on the quarterback. To me, it's just a weird situation, and I don't know. It's sad for the veterans on the team that have a guy that potentially does not want to be there anymore. I don't know, man. I just it's such a strange time, and the way that guys are going about, not all of them, but a way that a lot of guys are going about trying to get out of the place that they're currently employed, to me, just bugs me. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. You do what you got to do. Each individual is different. Each individual has their own representation. So that's something that, involves them as well. But man, I could go on about it for a long time. Everybody else,
let them cook.
We got time.
It's just such a weird thing, man. And it's annoying. And if he doesn't want to be there, like, they need to do what they got to do to get rid of him, because it's going to be bad. And even if it would be an even worse situation if they put him on one of the roster exempted lists and all that stuff because he doesn't want to report for work. I mean, just cut ties, find a trade partner, do what you got to do. And if he doesn't want to be there, you got to get rid of him.
That's what 100%. If that is indeed the truth, and to your point, Lance, we don't really know, but we believe what the league is saying, and what the people around the league are telling different reporters and everything like that, is that they believe that this is kind of a strong arm force trying to get out of New Orleans. And this ties together with the report that came earlier from Jeremy Fowler earlier this offseason after the restructure, which was that he and his team, Derek Carr's team, were willing to seek other opportunities, look for the opportunity to head elsewhere. I think the Saints should have made that decision at that point. Now, Derek Carr would have had to do something to help facilitate that. He would have had to adjust his contract or something to make him more tradable. So maybe the restructure, if maybe he refused to do that, the restructure was the only way to get to this point where they could potentially trade him after June 1st. But man, like, if he's telling you that he wants out, you can't be like, no, stay here in this building and lead the team to success. I don't see how those two things, I don't see how you rectify those two things together.
I mean, we should. And I mean, for somebody, I'm sorry, Dylan, it's for somebody who was open to the restructure and has a problem being restructured. You know what I'm saying? It's so much
what changed?
Messaging. Yeah, what has changed? Now, look, a coach changed, right? Like, I don't know if we'd be having this conversation if Darren Rizzi was the coach. I don't think so necessarily, but at the same time, this is where we're at. This is currently where we're at. And again, they don't need this negative energy, right? And now you've almost alienated the entire city of New Orleans, right? So I just don't think there's any coming back from this. I don't care what happens. There is nobody that's going to have sympathy or anything like that. If you don't want to be here, just go. Make it work. They've taken on larger dead money contracts in the past. I mean, they've done that continuously, but this is just not a good look either way. And I'm with Lance. It's both sides are to blame here, right? You could have done this months ago, and you could have put him as post June 1st. You could have done so many different things, but now this is the boat you're in. Now you have to live with it.
I mean, we feel like we should have seen this coming as soon as he went to Chipotle on his first visit. I mean, that's the type of tourist. That's the type of tourist that comes in, walks down Bourbon Street once, and leaves and calls New Orleans overrated. Like, I mean, it's a joke, but also kind of not a joke, because he just never really seemed to ever click with the city. And whenever you're the quarterback of the Saints and you're an antagonist of the city, feels like no one's ever going to be happy while you're there.
Right.
Like it's there's just been animosity since the first second he stepped on the field. And I mean, obviously he's going about it the wrong way. But like, I would never be happy if I was here and I was him. Everybody hates me, but I mean, it's something of partially his own doing. And it sucks. It sucks that this is the way it turned out. But it would have been nice to see, I guess, the Saints maybe just cut cut the loose end and deal with the cap money, the cap issues this year. If they had known that this was happening, maybe, but now it's just gotten worse and it's only going to get worse. So I feel like there's no salvaging of this.
Yeah, I wonder how much this changes. I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I kind of wonder how much this changes their view on, giving 9 figures to, a free agent that's coming in and relying on the free agent quarterback market the way that they have, as opposed to what we've seen over the course of the past couple of years and are expecting again this year, kind of leaning into like homegrown quarterback play, right? The rookie that becomes your starter is what I mean. And I wonder how much this makes them rethink or at least pull back a little bit on like restructuring contracts and kicking the can down the road. I wonder if this makes them rethink always wanting to be competitive as opposed to just taking half a step instead of taking a full step. You know what I mean? I wonder if this moment right now forces any type of at least conversation. I see you shaking your head, Lance. I think I agree with you, but I just wonder if let me say it this way then. I wonder if it should force any kind of reconsideration as to how they address certain things, right? How they go about roster management, how they go about money management, anything like that, because this is another player that's going to live on your books for a little while after what was a not so pleasant exit. Michael Thomas, Marshawn Lattimore. Marshawn Lattimore's wasn't like super contentious or anything like that, but the trade away and then the injuries and all the other stuff before that, and then now you got Derek Carr. Like this is now kind of just another one of these kind of disgruntled exits in a way that I'm curious if this makes you rethink at all. Like, man, maybe we shouldn't do this this way. Maybe we should adjust just a little bit to pull back on what these situations that are becoming more plentiful in the NFL, kind of the terror or whatever that they leave behind, or the dismantleization that they leave behind. I don't know. I think it should.
Oh, I think should it and will it are two totally different
two different
things.
100%.
Right?
100%.
Should this serve as a cautionary tale? Absolutely. 100%. And I'm not going to say that they didn't do their due diligence as far as when time came to be doing the recruiting process with Derek and
absolutely.
And
sure.
but in all honesty, any quarterback veteran that has had a little bit of success, that has started in the NFL, that has been to a Pro Bowl, that has been to the playoffs, that wants to sign with the New Orleans Saints is always going to have big shoes to fill because of Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
So it isn't like this was some job that was going to be easy for Derek to just slide on in and have a little bit of success and everybody's going to love him. No, that's not the case in New Orleans. Like we've been very, very fortunate. And at the same time, it's very, very hard to be satisfied or pleased with anybody that's taking snaps because of the success of Drew Brees. So I don't know if they're going to change the way that they do business. There hasn't been any indicator over the last 5+ years now that this team is interested at all in changing how they do what they do. And that starts with Mickey Loomis. His tune always is the same. And you guys have been to plenty of those press conferences where he's talking about how they operate, and he's talking about decision making. There's been no indicator that they're changing what they do, and there's been no indicator that this team is hitting the full reset. And like you said earlier, this will be the perfect time. You have a brand new head coach, you have a new coaching staff, you have something to build from. Why would you have not made this decision sooner? I don't get it, but I would hope that this would be a reason for them to kind of look at how they're doing business and hopefully not get themselves into one of these situations anytime soon again.
Yeah, the hope is that it forces them, right? Doesn't give them the option, but forces them to kind of relook at it. It's a good point.
Well, and accept some accountability for it. I think that's one of the things that fans might actually appreciate here is just say it. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. Like, pride's a big deal and all this other stuff. At the time, you felt great about Carr, but now you look at it in hindsight, all this other stuff. But, again, you look at how this has played out and you look at just the tea leaves, the breadcrumbs that have been left and such. I mean, this is something that I don't think many people are surprised by or, anything like that. And again, they'll make the dead money stuff work. I don't think this hinders their ability to pay somebody. If you look at free agency next year, they could still look at free agency. And again, something I floated out last episode on our show is that they could trade for somebody. They don't have to go to free agency route to get a solution for this year, to get a veteran quarterback and such. But man, it's tough when you look at all the GM decisions or you look at the front office decisions. Some of them you like, some of them you just don't understand. And, at some point, you're going to have to be honest about this situation and forthcoming. I don't know if we're going to get it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that we have all figured out that Derek Carr probably shouldn't be a Saint next year. But if this upcoming season, but if that does happen, how would that change the outlook for the Saints? We're going to jump into that real quick when we get back. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Gametime, you can be part of it without the stress of the last-minute ticket hunting. Gametime makes it easy to get playoff tickets, even when the demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. I mean, I know the New Orleans Pelicans aren't in the playoffs, but I went to one of the last home games, and I used Gametime because it was the easiest way to get tickets and see this team one more time. It was by far the cheapest and the easiest way I could get the tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And welcome back to Saints Squad. So we talked about Derek Carr in this situation, and it doesn't seem like we think that he's going to be taking snaps in 2025. So how does that change the outlook for the team? Are they, were they a playoff team and now they're not? What happens?
I don't know that it changes my outlook that much.
No, they're still going to push forward. They're still going to push ahead with who they got. I mean, they're still going to implement things under this new head coach and try to see what happens. I mean, I don't know, even if it was Derek Carr, I don't know that I'd call this was a playoff team. I think at best they could have got 7 wins this year because they have a lot of things to clean up and to prove before you say they're paper champions of anything. Like, again, we've talked about it on this show. Tampa is in the driver's seat to run this division. I don't know what's going to happen in Atlanta. I don't know what's going to happen in Carolina. I think those teams are starting to figure some things out. The Saints are a mystery team, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you, even if Carr was their quarterback, that they're pushing to the playoffs. I know that they believe that they gave them the best chance of winning, and now you're going to have to maybe lean more into that defense. That might mean you need to lean more into some of the strong points of this roster in order to field a competitive team. But, for me, again, I think if you roll with Spencer Rattler, and I don't want to get too ahead or anything like that, maybe this puts more emphasis on a ground game and gets you like an Ashton Genty at number 9 to where you can focus on some things like that. But I just don't know that this is just wipes away the Saints' plans for 2025. I just don't think it completely just derails them. I think they're going to charge ahead and keep going, but it is a hit.
Yeah, I think that's true. I looked at them as maybe a 6 or 7 win team. John and I were kind of in the same boat on that for sure. But I don't know that I look at them as much less than that without Derek Carr. I actually expected a portion of that 6 or 7 win season to be without Derek Carr anyway. Just we've seen like the injuries pile up. We knew that there was the potential for another young quarterback being added and all these other things. Like I kind of assumed that at some point, I think we talked about this. We said that, who was going to be the starter week 1. And I was saying, but it's a different conversation when you ask me who the starter is week 10. Like it was that kind of same situation. And so I don't know if this necessarily changes it. What I do think though, is that it gives Kellen Moore an opportunity to install his offense with a quarterback that will also, or that could also run it in 2026. I don't think he had that opportunity with Derek Carr in 2025 because I don't think Carr would have been here in 2026. I'm predicting, I'm speculating, I'm crystal balling. I don't know anything for sure. No one does. But this gives Kellen Moore at least a better opportunity to go into 2025 with the same quarterback that he has in 2026. And so I think from that standpoint, not necessarily a win-loss standpoint, but from that standpoint, the Saints might actually be a little bit better off if they went with a younger quarterback here in 2025 and didn't go out and grab a veteran that they don't expect to be, a quarterback of their future or rolling ahead with Derek Carr.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I agree with
I'll take
everything
it.
you said.
Yeah.
I think if it's true, I keep saying it. If it's true that he doesn't want to be here and he's not going to be here, then it absolutely changes the outlook of the team, because you have a starting quarterback who actually wants to be in the building, a starting quarterback who wants to be teammates with the guys who are around him. And therefore, you've got guys around the starting quarterback who are appreciative and want to play hard for a guy that's putting in the work to be the leader of that offense. I'm not saying that's going to somehow materialize into extra wins for this team, but it might. Somehow, some way down the road, there might be a situation where there's a play that needs to be made and the guy makes a decision. I'm going to go ahead and make this play because this guy's been busting his tail for me. And if people think that there's ever situations where guys don't do that, then they're wild, because it happens where a guy's like, I'm good. And they turn down the smoke. It happens. So I can't sit here and tell you how many wins they're going to have. I haven't even looked at the schedule that closely to be like, I think we can beat this team and this team and this team. What I do think is that we've got some good players on the roster. We've got some aging players on the roster. It's an interesting mix of talent on this team, but there are definitely holes that need to be filled. This draft is going to be huge as far as plugging some of those holes. What free agent signings still coming down the road to help add to this roster. Tampa Bay is on paper the best team in this division, but it's not like we play them every year and get smoked, right? This is a divisional opponent that we can beat. So I'm not glass half empty type of guy on this situation. I'm actually a little more excited if and when they name Spencer Rattler the starting quarterback, or even they take a swing and Shador drops to them and Shador is our guy moving forward. Right. I would be a little more excited to have a quarterback who actually wants to be in the building than a guy that seems to be disgruntled and does not.
I thought it was interesting and wise, I think smart by Spencer Rattler in the midst of all of this stuff going on with Derek Carr and the shoulder injury, and now all of this conversation about Derek Carr potentially trying to force his way out and all these other things. Spencer Rattler's like, here's me at the facility. I'm working. I love that. No comment on the situation. No trying to pump himself up by saying like, I don't worry, I can be your guy if I'm called on in 2025 or whatever. He just simply showed I'm doing the work. Do I know if Spencer Rattler is going to be able to be the team's future? No. Does anybody know that? No. Does Spencer feel like he can be? Yes, he should, right? You would want a quarterback that does believe that. But I love just that moment of just being just kind of sitting back and going, don't worry about me. I'm at work. I'm here. You know what I mean? And I appreciated that. Whether that is the route that the Saints go or not, we'll talk about future options here in a little bit, but I thought that was a wise move by Spencer Rattler. And you saw the 34-second video. I need to go through and go frame by frame and see how many seconds of the 34-second video included Spencer Rattler in there, because I thought that was pretty interesting too, because they cut to him a couple times during those off-season workout videos.
Rattler's
I was just going to say, he shows a lot of maturity. I mean, he really does. I mean, we saw that as a rookie too, Ross, the fact that he's very self-aware. He definitely is humble in a lot of aspects. He knows if he misses a read, he misses something, he's going to be the first one to point it out and such. So I think there is some appreciation for that. And it's just a subtle thing. It's like, hey, I am here. I'm working. And that's something he's been doing. You know, you get a little bit of time on the off season, but Spencer, I guarantee you talk to him, he's been at it probably since February, March, getting all this stuff ready for the season too.
He's been working all off season. I spoke to some people around him. He's been working all off season. He's been working with draft eligible wide receivers. Him and Kevin Austin Jr. were out working in Arizona together. He was working with Tedero McMillan and Alec Ayumanner, He's working with his quarterback coach. Like, he's got specific focuses that he's been working on, all these other things. Like, I'm not trying to pump him up to the point where it's like, don't worry, he's going to be the next Hall of Fame or anything like that. But I'm just saying that, like, there's a contrast here between the mystery of one and the certainty of another in terms of access to information, willingness to speak about what they're doing, all these other things, that I do think that whether fair or unfair, people can have their own opinions about it. I think it impacts the optics received by the fan base, received by the people that cover the team, received by the people that are a part of the organization. I think those things matter. I think those things move needles in one direction or another.
Look, it's Spencer Rattler isn't doing anything that most other pro football players aren't doing, right? He's doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing, right? And the main focus should be control what you can control. You can't control what's going to happen with Derek Carr. You can't control the narrative that's coming out of the media. You can't control who the starting quarterback is going to be at this point.
Right.
What you can control is how you work, how you operate, how you prepare. And if that opportunity comes for you, then you meet that opportunity, right? Like he's doing a great job of being a young pro and trying to improve at his craft. And that's exactly what you want in your starting quarterback.
Yep.
It's so crazy that we're at this point where you trade for a veteran that's been around for a long time, and then you draft a quarterback that was famous for having character concerns, and then now it's completely flipped around. And, and the veteran's the one that's acting childish, to put just simple, doing car reviews and stuff like that. And then
if what we're hearing is true,
if what we're hearing is true, then it's just
reality though.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
just
we can only go with what we have. But Rattler's he was at the Super Bowl. He was doing stuff around the Super Bowl. He was, doing parades, doing stuff like that. He's been connecting with the city in a way that it just feels like Carr never has. So I think, going back to the topic at hand, I think the Saints are better off without Derek Carr, even if it doesn't mean winning more games in 2025. I think just the overall vibe of the team going into next year, Kellen Moore's first year, there's not going to be this cloud hanging over of what do we do next year? Is this the best way to go about it? Now it's just time to, what you have, and you have a quarterback on the roster now that wants to be here, it seems like. And then you don't have the veteran just being, moping around.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, it's a strange situation. And so I think what we're coming together here, realizing is that being better off or having a better outlook doesn't have to mean win-loss record gets better, right? It's about kind of these other pieces that advance where your organization kind of is headed, if that makes sense. Am I summarizing that well?
Yeah, I to your point, and look, something backtrack a little bit. This is a captain of the team. You can't put him as a captain, even if he was hanging around too. Like, how are you going to convince people to leave this team if you do that? Just as a side rant, but I'm with you, Ross, because I said this about, we talked about what a successful season looks like for Kellen Moore. I could take them again, going back to a point and beat this dead horse. I don't care if they go 2-15. If they're in every game, 1-score game, and they're right there, then they're building the right culture and establishing the right foundation. I don't care what the record is, because I think that is more long-term sustainable success for this team going forward than just saying, well, 1 week I'm going to show up, we'll get blown out, and then the next week we're going to blow out this blow opponent. Yeah. Oh yeah, the roller coaster. Just be some level of consistent, and I'll be okay with that regardless of what the results are.
Yeah. And to Dylan's point, I do think that connecting with your city and connecting with the city that you play in is probably not always necessary for every city. Maybe it is for quarterbacks, but maybe isn't always necessary. But I do think, and Lance, you might be able to speak to that. Well, you can speak to this. Like, you have to do that to some extent here in New Orleans. Like, it's different, right?
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, I've played in enough places to know that New Orleans is a unique place, clearly, but the city embraces you if you embrace the city. And it again, I mean, it goes back to the Drew Brees thing, right? Like, he's got huge shoes to fill, and he doesn't have to come in and be Drew Brees, right? Like, Drew was over the top as far as his love, his work, his time, his effort with the city. but it's kind of a good blueprint for a quarterback to come in and be like, you know what? I need to immerse myself in this city. I need to give back to this city. I need to become a part of this city, because if you water that plant or the city will return that love exponentially to you. And we've seen it happen. So it's the fact that he didn't dive in, to me, was a little bit concerning. It's not the end of the world, right? Everybody's different. Personalities are different. They're different people, right? So you can't expect him to come in and be Drew Brees on and off the field, right? But the fact that Drew was so great on and off the field, it's tough to look at that example and be like, I don't really want to do that, right? Because everybody in the city still to this day and forever and ever will love Drew Brees. And, you know, I'm not going to put myself on Drew's level, but the love is mutual with myself in the city. Every time I'm back, I'm like, man, this feels like home. These people feel like family. And it's just unfortunate that he wasn't able to embrace it fully and really immerse himself into the city, because it is one of the greatest cities in the world, and so amazing to have success and shared success with the city of New Orleans.
Yeah.
I see those comments too, man. Lance, you got a lot of love for you, so I don't think you ever question how New Orleans feels about you.
You got to give it back, man. Like,
you're right.
That's it.
When guys come into a building and they act like it's all about them, it's kind of like, I don't know about this one. But when you are good to the people who support you, the love is returned tenfold, man. I mean, it is like, and it's. I feel like it was one of the best parts of playing in New Orleans is the fact that it felt like family everywhere that I went. I love the people to death, and it's a shame that didn't happen for him with the city.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked a lot about Derek Carr, you know, whether or not he's going to play next year, but let's each stand on the table, pick a guy who should be playing next year, and we'll do that right when we get back. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Post your job. LinkedIn's new feature helps you write your job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And welcome back to Saints Squad. It's time to decide who should be playing quarterback for the Saints in 2025. Lance, who's your guy?
I think you know who my guy is.
Come on.
Yeah.
Are we all going to agree here or what? That's what I'm curious.
I feel like we're all going to agree, but to me, like, Spencer Rattler deserves this opportunity. Not to say that any guy is greater than any other guy, but we did draft him last year. We did throw him in the fire last year. We did have him play with a group of guys that I wouldn't necessarily qualify as starters last year, right? So why would you not take this opportunity to get a good long look at him to see not just how he plays, but how he continues to develop throughout the season, what type of rapport he starts to gain with his teammates, what type of leader he becomes in the thick of it, right? What type of guy is he in the locker room? What type of guy do you see a future with him as your starting quarterback? And that's something that they can kind of, I would imagine, if Derek Carr's not around, they'd be afforded the opportunity. As long as he stays healthy, they could take a long look at him this season. And I think that it shouldn't be a situation where if he starts out and it's a little bit rough, or if he's having a tough couple of games that you bench him. I think you keep him as your starting quarterback and you give him every opportunity to win that job for the future. I mean, I think he's got the talent. He's shown the presence. I think he handled the situation last year great for a guy that hadn't been in the NFL, but for a couple of weeks leading up to when he became the starter. You know, we saw the Ian Book experiment years ago and how that turned out. And I would say that this Spencer Rattler short experience was a lot better than that one. And so I think it's got to be him. And I don't know that you even, if you think he's a potential guy, I don't know that you draft a guy early in this draft and make it a quarterback competition. I think if you do draft a guy, you draft him a little later and you can kind of bring him up slowly while Spencer is your starter. And if you use a draft pick on a guy and Spencer turns out to be great, then so be it. And if Spencer doesn't end up being great through most of the season, then maybe you make a change. But I do think it's got to be Spencer Rattler.
Ross, you said we might not all agree. What do you think?
I was wrong. I think we are all going to agree. I thought Lance was going to say somebody else. I thought he was going a different direction. That's my bad. I misread the situation. That's on me.
Unless it's Drew Brees coming back, I'm rocking the Spencer Rattler.
So yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'll add an additional piece, but I'll keep it brief as Ross can. The thing that I look at for this too is it allows you to be able to maximize what you do in this year's draft at other positions if you're not in a hurry to scamper and reach for a quarterback, right? And so if you grab one in the 4th or 5th round, like you have each of the last 2 years with Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler, then like Lance said, so be it. But then also if you don't, then also fine. If you use all those picks instead to bolster your roster around what you do plan to go into 2025 with, either you're going to succeed and not need a quarterback in 2026, or it's going to fail and you're in position to grab a quarterback in 2026. I think that it's all in the right place. But I completely agree that Spencer Rattler deserves this opportunity just based on what this team did commitment-wise with him last year. They stuck with him at the end of the season. Darren Rizzi did. And then just, figuring things out, right? Another year into the system. I do acknowledge that Spencer Rattler was the former coaching staff's pick, but I think organizationally there's consistency there. And so that works in the favor of Spencer Rattler.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have the same coach, but you have the same front office that have put Spencer Rattler there. So just saying.
Yeah. Right. I think we all do agree that Spencer Rattler's earned a shot, deserves a shot. I'll phrase it a little bit differently and just go with, I think that the quarterback should be whoever Kellen Moore thinks is going to help him win the most games.
Good point.
Like if Kellen Moore doesn't like Spencer Rattler, go to the draft and get someone. If you don't like the draft, go sign someone that's a free agent that can, carry the torch. I just think that the Saints need to buy in on whatever quarterback they hired Kellen Moore to run this offense and run with a quarterback. So go with someone that he is confident in and don't do any half measures just because, hey, Rattler's the guy that you have. Let's just not waste any time with anyone else. I think that just go with the confidence route. That's where I feel.
I like that.
Yeah. I'm again, we're all in agreement. I'm surprised at this a little bit, but I'm with Rattler. And the thing is, if that's your guy, don't make this long drawn out. We don't know who our quarterback one is, or just commit to him and let him do his thing. You're going to go through the struggles. You might go through some pain points, but don't do this thing like DA did. And we don't know who the backup quarterback is, even though we all could tell who the backup quarterback is and all this. But it's just one of those, it's like, let him do his thing and ride with it. And I know a lot of people have talked about, we didn't win a game without Derek Carr last year. That's not all on Spencer Rattler. Look at their defense in some of those games. Look at who they had in personnel. Like, which side of the coin is it? You can't argue and say, well, it's because of Derek Carr, they didn't have him, and then say, well, the defense and all this. Like, pick a lane and stay in it. That's my biggest thing. And so I think, again, give Rattler the opportunity. Give him, you got weapons for him, right? You're going to have an offensive line as long as they can stay healthy. I think you got to reinforce the trenches a little bit. That's why I like trying to invest in the run game. Take some pressure off of him in that aspect. Get him a good compliment, like a compliment to Alvin Kamara, and just let him manage the game. I think he can do that just fine. But if you're trying to make him Superman and make him do everything he might necessarily not need to do, then I think that's where you might run into some problems. And that defense has got to be better. You got to create opportunities for him, give him some short fields to work with. There are just so many things, but I'm with everybody. Make it Spencer Rattler, roll with him, and just let him do his thing.
To your point, they also didn't win a game without Eric McCoy, right? Like, so was it without Eric McCoy, or was it Derek Carr? So I'm, not to shift blame or move blame around. That's not what I'm trying to do. But just, like, if you're going to say you didn't win without one, then why not? Why wasn't it without the other? You know what I mean? So I'm with you on that. Hypothetically, I like to do a lot in the draft, like pairings and comparing the, you could do this in the first round and this in the second round, or you could do this in the first round and this in the second round, and which one do you like more? And as I think about it, if at number 9 I can add to my offense, if I'm GM Ross in this situation, and I could add to my offense Teteroa McMillan, Ashton Ginty, or Tyler Warren, right? Any of those three. Do I like having any of those three and Spencer Rattler more than I like having Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart or any other quarterback that you might grab at 9, and not any of those other big playmakers? And I kind of like a lot more the idea of one of those big playmakers and Spencer Rattler than one of those young quarterbacks and not having one of those big playmakers.
I think a certain person on this pod had pointed out, tight end best friend Tyler Warren. I think his name
good
more
point.
Talked about some of the things that would help out in this offense.
What?
So I don't know. I'm just saying it would make sense. It would make a lot of sense.
Lance
I'm usually
Moore,
pro
Kellen
wide receiver,
Moore,
but in that scenario, I mean, Tyler Warren is going to be a dude. I think we all see that. And I agree with you, Ross. I mean, I would rather have an additional skill player, because look, one thing that this team really, really needs is more youth and more depth, and being able to have another playmaker on this offense. Instead of saying, okay, we don't think Rattler is the guy, but we think maybe this other quarterback is going to be the guy. So then we're questioning again, who's the guy, and your depth as far as any of the other positions isn't elevated because of that scenario. And I don't think we want to live in that world. And I think there's going to be a solid quarterback draft class next year as well. So that would, I would imagine, benefit us in the chance that Spencer Rattler and whoever else may be the Saints starting quarterback this year, if they're not able to be consistent and be someone that they think that they can build the franchise around for years to come. I think building out the roster through the draft and not necessarily focusing in on quarterback early, at least, would be the way that I would do it.
Yeah, even if that guy at 9 is not an offensive playmaker, like if it's a player in the trenches, then the answer is full stop for me. I'd rather have the player in the trenches than not have the player in the trenches. I don't care. Like, quarterback doesn't matter anymore to me in that situation. Like, if I can have Mason Graham versus not have Mason Graham, I'll take Mason Graham. If I can have Will Campbell versus not having Will Campbell, I'll probably take Will Campbell. You know what I mean? And so I think in the trenches, like, even just the idea of building the roster in those places, those go outside of even the comparison for me. It's just, I'd rather have that player than not have that player, period.
Yeah. Well, I think that we all agree. We all agree. It should be Spencer Rattler, but
4 for 4, baby.
4 for 4. If you want to know what we think that should happen next, stick around. That's what we're about to jump into. And welcome back to Saints Squad, where we are about to get into what is happening next with this team. And I wanted to start with you, Lance, because I wanted your opinion. We've talked about all of this stuff with Derek Carr, whether or not who it should be at quarterback. It feels like Derek Carr can't come back to this locker room, because I feel like, from a player's perspective, people just aren't going to want to, play with him. Can he come back to the building? Is there a future where he does come back, or should they just be like, all right, it's now time, let's cut ties?
Well, I mean, look, if all of this stuff that's coming out is true, absolutely not. The guys will be looking at him kind of sideways. Now, that's not to say that if he comes back and somehow he's miraculously healed from a shoulder injury and he becomes a starter, I can speak from personal experience. When you're in the game, you don't have time to be thinking about anything else, honestly. Like, there's too much going on. It's too fast. There's too much potential for injury if you're worried about something else. So I can't necessarily say that if we're in the thick of it and we're in the middle of a game, that guys are going to be like, you know what, forget that guy, and they're going to do something and mess up. I will say that there could be potential situations where the effort might not be 100% based on their feel for the guy. But I just don't see how, after everything that's happened, coaching change as well, that you basically force this guy back into the building. And then, like, what happens? Like, you force him back into the building. Okay, I'm going to have shoulder surgery. He has shoulder surgery. Is he around? Is he helping out Spencer Rattler and the other quarterbacks in the room? It just, to me, it seems like a very, very awkward, tension-filled scenario. And I don't think it would really benefit anybody, honestly, if he is to be back around the guys and in the building. Like, I would imagine if he has shoulder surgery, he'd go get it done by Andrews or somebody else and rehab wherever it is that he wants to rehab and not be in the building. Yeah, I mean, if a guy doesn't want to be around, I just think that it's necessary that you do whatever it is that you need to do to facilitate his need and get him out of there.
It will be as awkward as when they had the game against Atlanta at the finale, and then DA had Mickey come in the locker room and all that awkwardness. It's going to be exactly that kind of level. That's exactly what would happen, and you will see what the end result will be. Like, that's what comes to mind for me, because that was an awkward thing for them to come in and say all of that, and especially the way that, you know, he didn't take the player's side, and the players felt a certain way about it. I mean, that's exactly what you're introducing, and I just think that's going to just bring toxicity. I mean, they're professionals at the end of the day, but come on, let's not kid ourselves. Like, this is how you're acting, and you want to come back, and then we're expected to follow you and all. Like, no.
I had a different scenario. That's a really good comparison, John. I had another scenario I was going to compare it to, and it was like the final days or weeks of CJ Gardner-Johnson in New Orleans, where you could kind of feel like there's a division here of him and some of the other guys. Like, you could just kind of feel it. No one ever said anything about it or anything like that, but you could just kind of feel it when you were in the area and everything like that. And what did the Saints do? They moved on from that situation. Now, there was also a contract dispute that was a part of that. CJ Gardner-Johnson wanted to be paid like a safety. The Saints wanted to pay him like a nickel, all these other things. But that contract dispute turned into this larger sort of division. And you can kind of feel the distance between CJ and some of the other guys. And I think if you responded to that, which was minor enough that you kind of just had to pick up on it, like you kind of had to wonder about it, I can't imagine what it would be like for this situation to end in like, hey guys, I'm back. Like, are we good? You know what I mean? Like, I think that would be tough if I'll do it for you, Lance. If what we're hearing is true, that he really like is trying to force his way out, and then eventually he doesn't get that way, so he comes back. I'm challenging at the very least.
Yeah, it is. So what should the next plan of action be for the New Orleans Saints?
Well, the draft is up next. No, you know what they need? You know what would need to happen? What I would do next is that I would, as an organization, make my decision on who my starting quarterback is in 2025. Who I intend for my starting quarterback to be in 2025. You get into training camp, all that can change, right? Like, you get into training camp, you see guys, stuff like that. Somebody impresses you, whatever, sure. But I think you make that decision with Kellen Moore, all that kind of stuff. And that's probably behind closed doors. You don't say that publicly or whatever, but behind closed doors. And then you start to build for that. I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints have kind of already done that, if I'm being completely honest. Like, to an extent, if they've known about this for a couple of weeks, that there was this shoulder injury, but then now there's all this other stuff that's happening. But if they have known about the shoulder injury situation for the last couple of weeks, I wouldn't be surprised if that's already happened. And then you start to build towards that. So you go into the draft, you draft around what it is that you're trying to build. And then after June 1st, you're calling up whichever team didn't get the starting quarterback that they want, and you're seeing if that's a situation that you can move Derek Carr to in exchange for like a late round pick in 2026. Cut ties, move on, sayonara, or say la vie rather, and then move on that way. That's the way that I think I would go about it if it's true that he's trying to force his way out.
Yeah, I think we should hear from Mickey before the draft. And honestly, between him and Kellen, I think they would go a long way if you just draw your line in the sand and say, this is what's going to happen in our stance. Don't dance around this. Don't try to play the PC game or anything. Just come out and say exactly what's up. You know what I mean? I think the fans would appreciate that. I know some stuff you probably can't say, but if you're going to say, look, he's not wanting to be here, or if this is what the case is, we're going to move forward with Spencer Rattler. Okay, cool. Let's do that. You know what I mean? And then we'll figure out what we're going to do. But just swallow some pride and figure this out, do this type of thing. But you got to move forward. Like you have to. And whether that's going to be drafting a quarterback, whatever the case may be, just move forward is all it is. And work on the 89 guys that want to be here for this training camp roster and all this stuff, not the one guy who doesn't want to be here and is going to just influence the rest of your roster and all this new coaching staff. They don't need this. They're trying to change the trajectory of this franchise. And if the quarterback that doesn't want to be here to be a part of it, then so be it. Move on.
Love that.
I can tell you what's not going to happen. Mickey Loomis is not going to announce anything leading up to the draft.
That's why I said wishful thinking, but I would respect it.
And this isn't a shot at Mickey. This is just a general way of operation. Nobody's going to reveal their hand leading up to the draft, right? Like every draft expert's going to have speculation about what every single team is going to do, but what no team is going to do is come out and say, hey, at this pick or in this part of the draft, this is what we're looking to do. Every team has needs that are different depending on who you're talking about. And everybody kind of generally knows what those needs are. But again, nobody knows what those teams are really, truly thinking. And part of that is playing the game, right? You don't want any of your opponents or anybody that's around you in the draft to have an idea or an inkling of what it is that you're thinking. So sure, that conversation might have already happened behind closed doors, but that's not really any conversation that we're going to be privy to anytime leading up to this draft come next weekend. So, maybe they have let Spencer Rattler know. Maybe they have let some of the guys on the team know what direction they're going in, but that's not something that's going to come out publicly. That's going to have to be something that comes out later on down the line. Because again, you're not ever trying to give up any extra information in a situation that you don't have to give up that information. And the draft is one of the most sacred things, forms of operation or whatever you want to call it when it comes to the NFL. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
That's why I don't believe Dion. I don't believe Dion.
I don't either. I mean, if I'm being real, like I get it, but I don't. There's a lot of things that get said around this time of year, and maybe 10% of it might be true.
Yeah, it's lying season.
Maybe a little bit more.
What would Dylan the Thump Sanders do?
Okay, that's enough out of you. Man, I'd go out there and sign Aaron Rodgers. No, I think.
Oh, that's a good point. That we should talk about that. I don't think they should do that. But go ahead.
I would just go in and play for 2025 and just don't make a decision, which I don't think a team would, but I feel like a lot of people throw this out there. Don't make a decision on this year based on 2026 quarterbacks. Go in with this year's quarterbacks. Go in with Derek Carr. Because first off, we don't know who's going to be on the board in 2026. It doesn't sound like Arch Manning's planning on declaring. So don't go for the legacy. Play with what they have right now. And if you don't think that, Spencer Rattler's the guy, go get someone else. If you think that Spencer Rattler is a guy, go do that. And just, get rid of Derek Carr. They think that's just the number one thing. Find a way to get him off the team and off the roster and out of the building. I think that's the number one thing that the Saints can do to improve the outlook for this season.
They have two ways to move on from Derek Carr too, just so that every listener, audience member knows,
Pay
is
attention, y'all.
they could trade him. They could trade him after June 1st, post June 1, which you can't designate a trade as post June 1. I've seen that a few times. You can't trade somebody before June 1st and say, no, this is a post June 2nd trade. You have to literally wait until after June 1st. So you wait until then, you can trade them. Plug your ears, Lance. If you do that, then $19 million of, dead cap sits for this year. You move 1.2 with him, and then you take on about 59 million next year, which is kind of already accounted for, something you were kind of ready for anyway. It's a lot of money, but ideally you're able to roll some money from this year over, salary cap rises, all these other things. You could also designate him as a post June 1 cut if you don't get a trade partner, which effectively is around the same money, but you take on 20 million this year, and then it's 59 million next year instead of 60, closer to 60 million next year in terms of dead cap. So that's the way that like the money works, and then like the options that they have. It's interesting, in terms of looking at where they are at this point versus had they designated him as a post June 1 cut earlier before restructuring his contract and all that, they would have had to carry a whole bunch of money up until June 1st anyway, and would have made it really challenging getting under the salary cap and all this other stuff. And so it is really interesting thinking about, like, had they made that move before, would they actually be in a better situation? Now, hindsight, it's hard to think about it, but they effectively create a similar mechanism. They just move the money to future years as opposed to anything kind of advancing into this year. So those are kind of the options that they have. The bottom line, though, is that means that they don't have to rush to make any decisions on them. And what I mean, make any decisions on him, you can make the decision to move on from him, but you don't have to rush to try to trade him somewhere right away or anything like that. You can literally wait this out and then figure out like what teams do in the draft, what team injuries, what teams have injuries that maybe you learn about before they report to training camp and all these other things. Like there's a few of these other things that you can wait on to make that decision and potentially have more destinations that you can move a player to at a later time and stuff like that. So that's kind of the advantage, quote unquote, to the situation that the Saints are in. If they decide to move on from him, and if Derek Carr does want to move on, they don't necessarily have to like stick to, okay, these are the two teams that are available. Like there's time to wait out and see what happens.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that, while we're clarifying things, the restructure was always built into the contract. The player doesn't have to agree to the restructure. They restructure him. That's usually built into the contract to do that. So it's not like a car has to agree or anything. Like that's typically how that goes already. So I know we need to clarify that too.
Somebody said that they would cut or trade before mandatory minicamp. Just real quick, that they couldn't trade him before mandatory minicamp. So I think mandatory minicamps are in May, if I remember correctly. And so
June,
No, it's in
mandatory
June.
minicamp is June.
Oh yeah,
June
no, I'm sorry,
11th
not
to
in
the
May.
13th.
It's in June. So they would have to make that move before then, but they couldn't make it before June 2nd. Like in any case, if they traded him June 2nd, it's like the day that it has to happen. But yeah, I guess you could make the move before mandatory minicamp, but it wouldn't be super early before that happens. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I cleared that up too.
I think this situation exposes somewhat of a lack of awareness by the organization, right? Do you not realize that your quarterback is disgruntled? Did your quarterback and his representation not say anything to you this entire offseason? Or are you just displaying an unwillingness to do things a little bit differently than you have in the past? That to me is kind of one of the more disappointing things. To me, it seems like we're kind of holding him hostage. If he doesn't want to be there, then why is he still there?
Right.
Like that to me is the part that I'm failing to be able to wrap my brain around. But it's I don't know. It's such a unique situation that we don't normally see with quarterbacks because they're generally the most handsomely paid ones. To get disgruntled and all of a sudden not want to be where they've been the last couple of years. It's just different. And I'm struggling to understand why it is what it is.
Yeah.
And them pass rushers are looking good right now with the way they're getting paid.
Yeah, right.
And I just think that people now they shouldn't be worried if they hear the words restructure. I know people are tired of the cap dancing. It's already going to happen. You look at guys like Chase Young and Justin Reed. They're making $1 million this year. That jumped up to $9 million this year. If you think they're not going to play around with their contracts, you're sorely mistaken.
Good point.
You're sorely mistaken.
You're right. They're going to keep doing that. I don't know. I just wonder if they do it a little less. You know what I mean? Like that's my big thing. But I do know that some of it was accentuated, like the COVID year dropped the salary cap. And so maybe after that, they had to restructure more contracts in order to get compliant than they originally intended. And so maybe now they get to a place like I would never expect the Saints not to restructure contracts, but I wonder if they restructure fewer contracts. I don't know. Maybe I'll see myself out. I'll see you guys.
The restructures are okay if you have a good team, right?
Yeah, right. That's the other part.
That's the problem. If you are a team that's competing for division championships and making it to the playoffs, restructures are completely fine. Yes, we'll kick the can down the road. It made sense in Drew Brees' latter years. It has not made sense since then. And that's the problem. And that's the reason why we're in the predicament that we're in, is because we continued that same formula with a team that is not readily one of those teams to be competing for Super Bowls. That's the issue.
Yeah. I've said this many times, Ross, on our shows and stuff, that the fact that the criticism is valid unless it works, right? Like, you can criticize this restructuring, all this stuff, but if you're going to put in 5 wins, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, you're kidding yourself. You got to be honest with where your roster is, where your team's at. It's not just injuries. It was not just injuries last year. There was a lot more going on with the team than just injuries. So it's just like, you got to be honest and you got to do some things. But with the restructuring, I mean, you know, it's going to keep happening. It will.
Yeah.
It'll keep happening. Well, that'll keep happening. I hope you keep listening to Saint Squad next Thursday, or that on Monday. Where you can check out me, Ross, John, and Lance on our socials for the latest. We'll be right back here on Monday for another Saint Squad, where I hope you're not tired of draft grades, because we're going to be doing pre-draft grades. We're going to be doing some hypothetical scenarios, seeing what we think of that decision. And for now, we're going to go on and send you over to Locked On NFL Draft. And thanks for coming, guys. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Yeah.